Tonight, in my last session, we are going to be looking at Jehovah Tsidkenu. We're going to the book of Jeremiah, and sometimes Jeremiah is known as the weeping prophet because Jeremiah had, without doubt, some really difficult prophecies and really difficult word from the Lord to deliver to the people. And it was hard, I'm sure. And not only did he have to deliver hard words, but he actually had to experience it and go through some of these things himself. And so no wonder he was known as the weeping prophet. This man had to warn the people that if they didn't turn back to God, that they were going to be exiled. And he actually saw the city of God brought to ruins and burnt to the ground. And he himself was carried away as a slave into exile. And so he is writing this prophecy, explaining what has happened, why God is doing the things that he is doing, because the people wouldn't listen. However, in the middle of all of the difficult things that he had to share, we find some amazing prophecies of hope in a hopeless situation. And one such prophecy is found in chapter 23. And I'm going to read some verses to you from Jeremiah 23 here just now. The chapter starts off where he's acknowledging that the thing's a disaster. The people have been disobedient. The leaders have been absolutely woeful. And God is dealing with them for their evil deeds. Then in verse 3, God says, "Then I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all of the countries where I have driven them, and I will bring them back to their fold, and they shall be fruitful and multiply. I will set shepherds over them who will care for them, and they shall fear no more, nor be dismayed, neither shall any be missing, declares the Lord." What a word this is to the people who are scattered all around. They have got no leaders. They've just been absolutely left desolate with no hope. And God says, but I'm going to move. I'm going to bring you all back together, and I'm going to set people over you who are actually going to care for you. And then he goes on in verse 5. He says, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will rise up for David a righteous branch, and he shall reign as king and deal wisely, and shall execute justice and righteousness in the land. In his days Judah will be saved, and Israel will dwell securely. And this is the name by which he will be called. The Lord is our righteousness." Jehovah Tsidkenu. What hope this was in a hopeless situation to the people of Jeremiah's day, where they heard that they were going to be brought back together, where they were going to get good leaders, but where there was going to be a king come who was going to deal wisely and justly, and he was going to be called their righteousness. Now we know, looking back from our point of view, that this was prophesying of Jesus coming. This was speaking of David, or of Jesus, the righteous branch from the line of David, the one who we know as the true vine, where we find all of our life and all that we need. This was speaking of Jesus, who was going to become our righteousness. Now that is hope in a hopeless situation, if there ever was hope in a hopeless situation. Because the Bible tells us that we were born in sin. All of us. If we were to be restarted, turn us off and turn us on again, our default setting is sinner. That's the way we were born. We were born away from God, and we were born in a situation where we couldn't help ourselves. Isaiah, he said in his prophecy that all of our righteousness is filthy rags. In the book of Romans, we're told that all of us have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. So don't you worry about who else is on the live stream or who else is watching this video along with you. Don't worry about the people in your house, or don't worry about your friends or pointing the finger at anybody else. Bible says all of us have fallen short of the glory of God. And that leaves us in a hopeless situation. But Jesus came, and he fulfilled the prophecy of Jehovah Tsidkenu, God our righteousness. Absolutely amazing that Jesus went to the cross. He took your place. He took my place. He paid the price for our sin so that we could be clothed in robes of righteousness, so that God would look on us through the lens of righteousness. I can't even hardly explain to you what that would mean tonight, that God is our righteousness. But I want to leave you 3 ways in which it impacts, I think, our everyday. The first way I think this will impact our everyday lives is our feeling of needing to perform. Performance. I think all of us have this inbuilt notion where we're trying to earn it, where we would come to God and we're trying to do our best to get God to be pleased with us. And on the flip side, if we're not doing well, then we kind of beat ourselves up because we think we have failed and we're doing so bad, and we try and then punish ourselves, and we try and formulate this performance to try and earn God's favour. And so I wonder, have you ever been caught with that and you're like, God, I have read my Bible 7 days in a row now, and so God, I'm going to pray this prayer because I have done 7 days of Bible reading, and so God, I think that I could earn it. On the flip side, have you ever been like, do you know what, I don't think I'll go to church today, or I don't think I'll go to the Bible study, or I don't know that I'll read my Bible today because, well, I didn't read it yesterday. Or last night I just messed up again and I don't think I'll bother going to church. And we try and punish ourselves because we haven't been doing so good. Well, if you could see that God is your righteousness, well, I think that would do away with all of your need for performance. Because you could never earn it. That's the point. You couldn't earn it. But God has given it to you as a gift. And so you don't need to perform. You don't need to earn it. And I think that would give us freedom in our works. Because now we're not doing things to try and earn God's favour. We're doing them from a heart of thankfulness, and we're coming and saying, God, because you have given me this gift of righteousness, that you went to the cross to become my righteousness, well then I'm going to do all of these things because of that. God, I'm doing this from a heart that's thankful, and God, I'm going to do these things to show other people all that you have done, to show your love. God, I'm going to do this to just show that I love you so much. And God, it's not about performance and about me earning it. I realize that you are my righteousness, and I'm doing it from a place of thankfulness. The second thing is, it impacts our perspective. Because, have you ever heard the phrase, I'm just a sinner saved by grace? Now, I get the truth that there is behind the statement that yes, we are sinners, and when we come to God as sinners, we are saved by His grace, a free gift of salvation that He gives to us. But at that moment, we become new creations, and we become not sinners that are deserving of hell, but we become sons and daughters of the King. How amazing is that? That He looks at us through the lens of righteousness and says, I no longer see you as a complete failure. I see you as a son or as a daughter. So many of us, I think, go around and we're so just downcast, we're so discouraged because we have failed. And we do continue to fail. But we get this a perspective of, I'm just such a failure. But no, God is looking at you tonight through the righteousness that Christ has given us. And He's not looking at you as a failure. He's looking at you as a son or a daughter. Could you allow Jehovah Tsidkenu, God, your righteousness, to impact your perspective, to help you to see yourself the way God sees you? I think if we could do that, then it would give us freedom in our worth. freedom in our worth. No longer going about with our heads hung low, with our hearts heavy and sad, thinking that we're failures and we're worth nothing. But we could get the perspective and the freedom of realizing that God so loved the world, that God so loved me, that He gave His only begotten Son. And because I believed in Him, I have got eternal life and I'll not perish. And we would see that God loves us that much. And He now sees us through the lens of His righteousness. The third thing is, I think this would impact our praise. If we can just grasp that we're clean, that the slate has been wiped clean, that just like the prodigal son who was out there working with the pigs and he had made a mess, but when he came home, the father ran to meet him, he threw his arms round about him, he put on a new robe around him, and he put a ring on his finger and shoes on his feet. We have been clothed in robes of righteousness. We don't need to earn it. The Father has given it to us as a gift. And if we could grasp that the perspective that God has on us is that we are new creations and that we're sons and daughters of the King of Kings, surely that would impact our praise. Surely that would impact our prayers. How we come to God with thankful hearts. God, I'm so thankful. Surely that would impact the way that we sing when we're in church and the song that's in our heart every day, where we would be praising God and thanking Him for the great gift that He has given us and for the hope that He has brought to our hopeless situation. I think if we were to get Jehovah Tsidkenu and allow that to impact our praise, well, then we would have freedom in worship. If we could just grasp and become so confident in all that God has done for us, I don't think we would worry about what anybody else thinks. We would sing, we would pray, we would worship Him like nothing else mattered, because nothing else really does. Because God gave everything for us so that He could become and could be known as Jehovah Tsidkenu, God, the Lord, our righteousness. And I think it would give us freedom in worship, because we would worship Him because He's worthy. I really hope that you could spend a few moments to just meditate and to think upon God, our righteousness, the price that He paid for it, and how it might impact our performance, our perspective, and our praise.